It's all alive again at the National Stadium. Speeds. Was he held? Yes! Penalty! So often in the past, Wales have suffered because of penalties in vital matches.
Gordon's there. Field, surely a handball. Penalty kick. It's a penalty kick for Scotland.
Paul Bowden to take it. Oh, and he's hit the crossbar. Sensational from Huw Davies.
Bill! Gareth Bale, NBE.
These home forwards are in fighting trim. John Charles again passing to Tapscott. He shoots and it's in. Wales have opened the scoring.
Great John Free rush! Yes! 1-0! And Wales have finished with a bit of a swagger.
Croeso, welcome. Podcast Pêl-droed. It's episode 180 something or other. My head's in the shed. The gremlins have been plaguing us, but almost a full house. If it wasn't for those so-and-so's at Estin, it would be a full house because Gaz is tied up with that. But Rich, good to have you on and have you back. Okay?
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
Huw, you survived Brussels?
Yep, got back late last night. Good trip.
Yeah. And Leon, how are you?
Not too bad, Russ. Thank you. Yeah.
Cool. Not so great news from your part of the world out in Graz, which is a shame to hear. Hope that's not affected sort of anybody within your kind of orbit over there. I know it's a different part of the country, isn't it? But so sympathies there. And I did see Huw. I don't know if it was anywhere near you. Somebody took a bit of a tumble from like one tier to another.
Yep.
In the stadium.
I didn't know anything about it until afterwards, and then saw that it was in the news that someone had fallen from the top tier to a lower tier. But he sounds fine now, and he just said, "Oh, I'm just a bit sore this morning." I mean, I don't know if there's much to read into it in terms of stadium safety, or if it's just a pissed guy being pissed because there were people falling over near me as well. It's just sometimes what happens, I think.
Infamously strong Belgian beer. We all said a while back that it was going to be interesting with Bellamy, and that's about as interesting as it's been for a while on Monday evening. But before you talk about that game, I mean, it was a regulation win on the Friday against Liechtenstein. The first half was pretty dreadful. Second half sort of livened up a little bit. We were a goal or two shy, Leon, in our predictions.
I said 3 or 4, and you kind of you bullied me up to 5. I think so it's your fault.
Yeah, okay.
No.
I thought the floodgates might open when we scored, 2 in quick succession, but it sort of petered out a little bit. But I thought the goalkeeper actually did okay. I thought he had a decent enough game.
I thought he made a couple of absolutely fantastic saves. There was one from the Brennan Johnson shot in the first half, and then the one where the Ampadu overhead kick, and it takes a deflection and changes direction, and he got his hand to it. So if the keeper hadn't had such a good game, it would have been 5. So claim that as a moral victory.
Yeah. What do you make of it, Rich? Our first game.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was okay. It wasn't brilliant. I was similar to you. I kind of thought it would be 5, and looking at the chances, it probably could quite easily have been 5. I mean, it was quite a tough game for Kiefer Moore. I thought. I didn't think things just kind of weren't really falling for him that well. I mean, he did score in the end, but that was quite rough. And then losing Nico Williams was awful. That that kind of really took the shine off it. Even though De Silva did okay when he came on, but obviously quite evidently not in the same class as Nico Williams. It was okay. It wasn't great. Sorba Thomas, very industrious, played well. I can't think of too much to say about it, to be honest, other than we probably should have scored more, and quite probably that's going to come back and bite us, unfortunately. Particularly
because you can see Belgium putting like 11 on them or something ridiculous. Do we know much about the Nico injury? Because afterwards, he looked in a lot of pain. It was down the other end of the stadium from me, but he looked in a lot of pain, and I thought it was his knee to begin with. But I think they said it's his ankle.
I don't think there's been an update on time out. No, it did look bad.
I think the only reference I've seen is someone from the Forest, out of Nottingham Forest, saying, confident he'll be back in time for next season, which isn't necessarily the same as having being fit for a pre-season and being back in time. But yeah, it was a shame. I thought we'd miss him. I thought we missed him then on Monday then in the second game. But yeah, is there anything else? Lewis Kumas made a nice little cameo, but again, it's hard to make any kind of sort of definitive judgments when they're so limited in terms of opposition. Like you said, De Silva did okay. He put in a lovely little cross for one of the goals. But again, it's you don't want to read too much into it because you can inflate the reputations of a couple of these players or the impact of these players, and it's not really warranted, is it?
No, I thought it was just a professional job. Got it done. I thought 3-0 was probably roughly right or fair. So actually more maybe 4 because their goalkeeper did have a blinder, including that save from Brennan Johnson. But I was less worried than I am against previous minnows during the game because I thought it would be not tricky, but I didn't think we were going to rout them or anything. I thought we would just struggle to see them off and win 2-0. And in the end, we created some decent amount, scored 3 and forced a lot of saves. So I'm not particularly disappointed with it. You want to be beating Liechtenstein 6-7-0, but it's not really a role we've ever had because we seem to really rarely draw these minnows. We haven't faced San Marino in forever, for instance. So the fact that they've not had a single shot, which is quite unlike us, and we've created some chances, decent number of chances. Nice first decent appearance for Jada Silva. I don't even mean that as shade really, because we just often haven't given him much of a chance. Under Page, he was kind of called up and then not used when we needed him, when we needed a left back most. So the fact that he was trusted to come on and played pretty well was good. He's like the size of my thumb. It's crazy. He looks like he's been digitally shrunk. He must be shorter than Brian Flynn, Leon. You'll know because you're the Flynmeister.
Flynn's 5'4". I don't. Yeah, that's what I thought. Watching him on TV, I was like, this guy's he's sort of a bit bigger than Flynn. He's maybe Dennis Wise size. 5'5", maybe 5'5", 5'6". Wise size.
Yeah.
But there's a stockiness to him as well, though. I think there's maybe a little bit more, I don't know, muscle there, maybe, I don't know. But yeah, he did okay. But again, you don't want to read sort of too much into it either, do you, really? So yeah. Anything else to say on that game, really? Like you said, we created enough chances. We probably left a couple of goals out there. It was always going to be a bit of an hors d'oeuvre to the main affair. No Dan James, and he wasn't available then on the Monday either, which is kind of like our left flank. And it's nothing against Sorba Thomas, who I thought was excellent on Monday and has been a revelation since Bellamy came in. But losing Nico was, I think, a blow. And Leon, we said we expected him to name a strong side, maybe make some changes, which is more or less what he did. There might have been 1 or 2 personnel things we might have a quarrel with or whatever, but it largely went as we would have expected it. An enforced change because of Nico. Go on.
Can I just pull you up on that? Sorry, because I said I thought there would be 3 changes between the 2 teams, and you said you thought there would be more, and I was absolutely right with that prediction. There were exactly 3 changes. So I didn't want to let that one go, Russ.
No, you carry on. You carry on. Small victories and all that. One was enforced, mind. Insofar as Nico, but I don't know. I'm kind of interested in.
Yeah, I foresaw that.
So he moves Davies to the left, brings Mepham in.
I think that's quite common for him. I think we've had a couple of windows now where we've had a home and then an away, and he has done that switch for the 2 games. Ben Davies at left back for the tougher game away, and Nico at left back. I think that's what we did in Skopje. If I remember rightly. So it seems to be what he likes to do, and then also play Jordan James rather than kind of forward at number 8 as he sometimes does with Cullen, who puts in a decent shift and actually played pretty well on Friday. But it's not his natural position because, at home, Benny obviously feels comfortable enough that we can do that. It's why in the autumn we kept playing Josh Sheehan as and actually in March as well, Josh Sheehan is like the only midfielder, which seemed mad, but it worked pretty well. And now Ampadu's back, who's just obviously a class apart in that role. That seems to be his plan. Yeah, 4-1-4-1 with crazily attacking options at home and then slightly more conservative away, or at least maybe just for the tougher fixtures. Home against Belgium, he might play the more conservative route, and away against Liechtenstein, he won't.
And I can see the logic there. If bringing Davies in brings a bit more sort of defensive solidity, he's a good organiser. He's captain as well, obviously. I don't know. I thought I thought Davies struggled a little bit on against Belgium. I thought he did that kind of like scramble defence thing, kind of really, really effectively. Blocked one chance from Lukaku in the second half, but we got picked off wide quite a bit, and he looks really uncomfortable when he kind of tries to step in and be that extra kind of centre midfielder, that inverted fullback thing. I hate to dig him out because I adore Ben Davies, but I thought he struggled a little bit in that fullback role, which is a bit different to maybe how he's been asked to play fullback in the past. And I just think if he'd have had Nico, if he was still fit, I think he'd have just fulfilled that role a little bit better. I suspect he might have played, notwithstanding what you were saying about it being a bit of a pattern that he's employing. I think they seem to work us out. I think they thought we were vulnerable down the flanks, and mainly down the left in the first half, and I think it kind of proved to be the case. But how'd you read it, Rich?
I think potentially there's a lot to be said for what you're saying there. I mean, for me, the big thing that it seemed like when Belgium got off to a fast, aggressive start, and our players didn't combat that. One moment that really struck me was, I think I'm just going to double check this. I think it was like the 20. I think we were 2-0 down around the 20-something minute, and Ethan Ampadu targeted Belgium's left back, the smallest guy on the pitch, and just kicked him up in the air for no reason, and just got a booking. So to me, that was, and that kind of, I know Belgium scored once more after that, but that was kind of a turning point where we actually started really getting into them. Before that, I think we've been really, really passive. Passive like all over the pitch. And I think kind of Bellamy's alluded to this a little bit. So I think as much as, as well as Belgium attacked, and they did attack pretty well, as potent as they were, I think our players, for whatever reason, weren't at it in that first kind of half hour, and really, really paid the price for it. And I guess Davies would be as culpable as anyone in that. I think it was kind of, you could argue we were too attacking, but we were kind of asking for that pressure. But I definitely think there was a passive kind of vibe to them, borne out by the fact that, I mean, even someone like Jordan James didn't seem to be able to be near anyone at any point. Even kind of, I think Ampadu was well off his kind of, until he kind of made his intervention on that poor guy. Was kind of well off it, which was surprising to see. And then we turned it around, and then our attacking tactics really worked when the intensity was there. And maybe you could say Belgium had eased off the gas, possibly, even subconsciously. But that lack of intensity to me seemed really, really palpable and kind of obvious. I'd like to hear Bellamy talk more about that, which he might do further down the line.
Yeah, I shame that Jordan James probably had his worst game for Wales, just as Brennan Johnson probably has his best game for Wales, because he's been so good. But he just, like Rich said, he was just a bit off it, wasn't he? He just wasn't getting tight enough to people, and the obvious one being the third goal. And Doku, obviously brilliant player with very quick feet, but it just didn't get tight enough to him. And just Ampadu as well, wasn't as great as we come to expect from him. And they were just sort of playing through us so easily, which you wouldn't expect with those two as our sort of central midfield defensive pivot in front of the back four. I mean, you can kind of put it in sort of quite binary terms to say, like, defensively we were really bad, and going forward we were really, really good. some of the interplay between Wilson, Johnson, and Sorba Thomas in particular was just outstanding, really. Thinking of the second and third goals for us, just absolutely stunning attacking play, pace and touch and intelligence and movement. But yeah, even at 3-3, it felt like it was exciting, and you were like, okay, momentum's with us, but it felt like they were playing through us so easily that they were going to create other good chances. So it was, certainly far from comeback complete, which is what it turned out to be, sadly.
And we had the warning sign before then, of course, with the disallowed goal for the goal turned throw in, which you don't usually see very often. I think they scored pretty soon after the restart after that as well. I guess it came down in the end to like, when's the clock going to stop? Because if that game kept playing another 10 minutes, it would have finished about 6-5 or something like that. And it was just, can we be level when the music ends? And when the music stops, and like that's a problem in terms of defensively, we are that open, and they had great chances. But I haven't been there. Like it's incredible how much I am still absolutely buzzing from the comeback, even though we lost it after that. Like I still feel positive, even though that's a disappointing defeat, and even though it's potentially all but ended our chances of automatic qualification. I've just never quite had that euphoria of seeing a Wales team play really exciting, slick attacking football, even when we've been good. Like this, the way we're playing, looking like a fantastically well-coached team, putting together great moves. Like we are doing things in attack that a lot of nations aren't, because they say it's not possible. You can't coach attacking movements and structures in such short training time. And I thought that was the case as well. We are showing we're capable of doing that with some beautiful goals. The problem is the opportunity cost is our defense is really bad at the moment. Like I know that sounds harsh, but I just mean that we're so easy to play through by a good team. And I know this was Gaz's view. Gaz not with us tonight, but he was saying like Belgium could have won 9-4. I wouldn't have gone that far. Like we had chances of our own that we didn't take. Like Brooks had a fantastic chance. It was just one of those games where
the Harris header.
The Harris header as well. I mean, we had 8 shots on target, which obviously doesn't include Harris's header wide. I think each team had 4 or 5 big chances, like Opta defined big chances. The XG was through the roof. It was a crazily open game in that. And like the defense is a real issue, and we'll come to that. But I don't want anyone listening to just think, God, is it really all that bad? Because that was an extraordinary moment in the stadium that I'll never forget. And for all the fans there, it was incredible, even if we've ultimately come down, with no points. And I feel better than if we'd have lost that game 1-0 and not created much,
I mean, both teams defensively weren't great. You look at the left back. He picked up a booking. I mean, it was funny that he made 2 changes, didn't he? The Belgian coach at half time. Both the players were on yellows. Johnson was getting a lot of freedom down the right. I think maybe we could have targeted that fullback a little bit more. De Winter then De Kuiper, wasn't it? He really struggled. So both sides looked a little bit fragile at the back. But some of the I don't know whether it was the organisation. It's that lack of intensity. I think you used the word passive a little bit a moment ago, Rich. We weren't switched on even. Even short corners were catching us out, and it's just like there wasn't quite that alertness that, well, frankly, there needs to be at this level. And they then kind of targeted some of those. We've said this before about sometimes teams just kind of seeing a chink and like ruthlessly exploiting it. And I don't think we did that with their left back, with De Kuiper, for example. Sorba had De Winter on toast as well for large parts of the second half. Trossard gave away a really soft yellow. I don't know, just a little bit more sort of streetwise as well. When you see there's a weak, a chink in the opposition, to kind of go for it. But yeah, I agree with I thought Johnson was great. It's just such a shame, like you said, he has his best game for us arguably, and it comes at the same game as a couple of players having arguably their worst. I haven't got a question there. I don't know why I was coming up to one and I didn't come up to one. Sorry.
suppose while we're talking about Johnson, we should mention again that Sorba Thomas was fantastic and got his first goal for us and assisted another and had a role in the first one because he put in the corner. I think having won the corner, Davis won the corner from his through ball. He was just a constant threat throughout, really. Having had his move to Stoke confirmed, like I think the day after, it's quite weird to think that a player on international duty can just put all that stuff to the back of their mind. Like, I mean, he presumably was waiting to hear whether it had gone through even on the day and the day after and stuff, which is a bit mad. But he was just absolutely brilliant, I thought. And it just shows that he's just got to play as a winger. He's not a wing back. And so that was why, partly why it never really worked for him under Page. Although, as you said at the time, Russ, like his delivery from set pieces and stuff, which was so, well hailed, wasn't good for us either. He didn't really perform. But he's just showing now that he can just be so threatening as a direct winger, just beating a man, getting his crosses in, and even I think in the first minute he put in a decent ball for Brennan Johnson, which might have been a bit too heavy, or Johnson might not have read it. Either way, I think it's just one of those balls that flashes across the box, but it was a really well weighted. It just didn't quite find the run. So I was really happy with him. And Harry Wilson, I thought played well. Basically, as you said, the wide forwards and especially the little interplay that they had was really impressive. Like the second goal is just a really good goal. Darlow with a good pass. Darlow is a separate question about whether he's doing well for us at the moment, but certainly that was an excellent pass. And then Johnson and Wilson have put it together beautifully, and Sorba Thomas has finished it off in the end. That was just a great team goal.
The weight on the weight on the pass from Wilson. I mean, to spot him is one thing, but he weighted that perfect. I mean, that you can see as it kind of comes across the defender. The defender's thinking, "Oh, I can have this. Yeah, I'm going to get. Oh no, I haven't." And just perfect. I mean, Sorba Thomas doesn't have to break stride. It's a beautiful, beautiful pass, and not even lofted as well. I mean, it was pretty much from memory. I think, if I'm remembering it correctly, more or less kind of on the floor as well. It wasn't like he lofted it into the thing. It was, wasn't it? Yeah. I mean, just a wonderful, wonderful pass. That's my favourite Wales goal probably since the last one we scored against Belgium, or Wilson scored against Belgium.
That was a great goal.
Move in, is it Leuven? I think it was, wasn't it? Yeah, really, really enjoyed that goal. The penalties. Should we talk about the penalties? In inverted commas. I mean, obviously ours was one. What really irks me is this thing now, hands in unnatural positions has become part of the lexicon. Unnatural position, arms or hands, it's become part of the lexicon of the game now. Well, Johnson's arm is in a natural position. If he's waving it in the air to get out of the way of that shot, he's putting his arm in an unnatural. So it's kind of like he's damned if he does, he's damned if he doesn't.
Where's he supposed to put his arm?
Precisely.
It's behind his back, and he turns away, and I do not understand how that is a penalty at all.
It's no idea. Sort of behind his back. It's, I mean, like in the ground, I was like, I didn't see it live, and I had to kind of like try and piece together what had happened. I only heard about it, and then kind of saw bits here and replays there, and I was like, oh yeah, it's a bit dodgy. Having just watched it again and had the whole slow-mo and 18 different angles and everything that VAR get, I'm like, I mean, I can see what that's meaning. We'd be furious if that wasn't given for us. I think it's a 60-40 in favour of a penalty is probably my opinion, or 50-50 maybe. Like,
really?
His hand, the ball's quite far away from him when it's kicked, so he's got a long time to move out the way if he needs to move out the way. I don't think he's trying to hide his arm as much as all that. I think he's kind of giving a little dangle as he puts it behind him. But at the same time, I don't think it was a shocker, and I don't think either way, and I don't think our penalty was a shocker either way either. I think they cancelled each other out. Well, I reckon that I reckon if neither were penalties, or both were penalties, fine. If we'd got one and they hadn't, or vice versa, then you'd probably say like we've got very lucky if we'd had that. Is my opinion. I don't think there's much of a difference in them, to be honest with you.
Well, I'm going to sit this one out. Casting vote, Rich.
Well, yeah,
I'll give it a Rich.
That big sigh there is I'm just not a VAR guy at all. I'm like an absolutist. I just don't think there should be VAR. Full stop. It's appalling. So, like on that basis, I would probably just say,
just want to agree on that.
I just don't care. VAR is awful. It kills games, and like the way I would see it is that pre-VAR, you might have got a penalty for that, you might not. And that's just the end of it. So I'm not gonna get myself riled up talking about whether There's some either one of them, I mean, both decisions to me they weren't really penalties, either one of them, I don't think, particularly. However, they get given whatever. It's just it's not the fact they're given or not, because mistakes happen in football, and that is what makes it so compelling, or has done. But the involvement of VAR kind of sours that for me. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe they were, maybe they weren't. I don't think either one was.
Okay, there we go.
VAR had a shocker as well. Loads of really long checks. So when I say shocker, like, people will go, well, if they got the decision right in the end, I think there's a lot of debates about whether they did or not. But in the ground, it was painful, because I think our second goal, Sorba Thomas's goal, was checked for a long time, and in the replay, I can't work out at all what the problem would have been with it. One of theirs was checked for ages. The throw-in took about the one where their goal was disallowed and it was given as a throw-in. On the highlights package, they score in like the 80th minute, and then it says 85-30 VAR check. So like that took a good 6 minutes.
It's ridiculous.
We got 8 added back in the end. Like, I don't really want to complain about, we had only 8 minutes added back, because I'm not going to say like, we deserve to draw and we've only had another couple of minutes, because you don't know, it might have been the case, it might not have been. But I reckon like a good 20 minutes or so was VAR in that game, if not more, over the course of both halves. It was madness.
It's crazy. What time did you get out in the end then? It was like midnight or something. 1:30 in the morning.
I mean, can I just say one more thing on the VAR? I do wonder whether the amount of VAR decisions, the kind of and the time spent taking them, unsettled our players to some degree, because I think, Russ, you were saying there were times where we just really, really switched off or just weren't quite on it, and I do think that potentially could have played a part. For example, when on the throw-in, it was given as a throw-in, the goal was ruled out, our players stopped and just basically, they thought it was gone out for a throw-in, the players stopped, the guy carried on and went and scored, and it was disallowed. But I mean, something like that, you would never, like, a top-level professional wouldn't really do that typically. They wouldn't just sort of stand around, particularly in like a high-stakes game. They would just play on and take the guy out, probably, in that situation. So I just wonder whether like the cumulative effect of all of these stoppages, all of the kind of VAR stuff, had an impact on our players. Now it shouldn't do. They should keep their heads and not allow it to affect them. But I just sort of wonder if it did. Our kind of responses to stuff at times was really, really ramshackle. And kind of given Johnson scored in like the 69th minute to equalise, I think we were kind of also stuck a little bit. It would have been better if we'd have equalised in the 89th minute, because then clearly we would have just really gone low, held out. Surely we would have done that, surely. But I think because it was like 70 minutes, at times it seemed they were like half in, half out on whether to calm it down or keep on attacking and try and win. And I mean, they could have won. It turned out they didn't. But yeah, I just think that maybe that the VAR stuff had an effect on them mentally. And also maybe, and I do think this is like a genuine kind of point of interest, is Bellamy's messaging of what to do in that situation maybe was confused. Maybe not everyone bought into it entirely. I'm not sure.
I was going to ask you exactly that, Rich. You know, to what extent is that incumbent on the sidelines? It's the bench that needs to get that message in as to what are we doing? Because you get back to 3-3, surely the message is right, just don't lose.
Yeah, I've just highlighted this quote that Bellamy said. Now, I think he's a guy, he does like to talk. We all know that. But the exact quote was, after the game, "I'd rather try something great and fail than do nothing and succeed." Well, no, I'd rather do nothing and succeed. Thank you. So, like, I would definitely rather sit back and defend for 90 minutes and win, or defend like you've just got back from 3-0 down. I'd rather just see the game out and get the point, especially given how Belgium dropped points to North Macedonia. And then probably, if we draw that game against Belgium, we're favourites to win the group. So, like, I don't know whether Bellamy was just saying that to kind of not knock the players' confidence, or to kind of like keep morale up. But I mean, it's a very alarming thing for him to say, to be honest.
But you're right. It's not just a game dynamic, and in the 90 context, it is also that group, and he's got to be across all of this. Given how the results went, as you said, I mean, we went in top of the pile into the window, and we've come out second. And North Macedonia have had a great window. Yeah, I think you're onto something there in terms of that messaging.
To offer a kind of counterpoint in it, I imagine he's thinking, we've scored the last 3 goals in this game, and we've shown we can score them, and we have all the momentum, I assume is how he's looked at it. Now, we looked really dodgy, as Rich said, kind of at key moments. So, like, from kickoff, like they almost scored from kickoff in the second half, pretty much. And we conceded very soon after we'd scored one of the goals, I think. And other way around. When the goal was disallowed, we then conceded very soon after we restarted play again. That's the question. I suppose the thing is, do we back our defence enough to shut out Belgium for what would have been best part half an hour? Well, actually, no, it wouldn't. Not at the time, because the breaks came later. But what would have looked like 20 to 25 minutes? Do we think we can defend against Belgium for that long? Is probably one consideration. But I think he's probably just thinking we can score another here, because we have already got this back. We have scored 3 goals in the last half hour of this game. We've shown we can do more. Do we try and change it all now mid-game? I mean, I don't have the answer to that. I'm not saying he did the right thing. I'm not saying he did the wrong thing, but I can see where he's coming from with it.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this quite a lot today. It's like it's idealism versus pragmatism, isn't it? And I think that these things should be probably a 50-50 ratio. For Bellamy, you get the feeling it's sort of 99% idealism and 1% pragmatism, if that, because you're away against one of the best teams in the world. You come back from 3 goals down to get it to 3-3. The draw is a fucking brilliant result, especially in those circumstances. And you've got to shut up shop. Like, you can see that they're going for a winner. I think the balance was wrong. I mean, it's just like sort of an opinion. I'm sure if Bellamy was here on this podcast with us, he'd be like, "What the fuck do you know about football?" And he'd have a point. But it's just so frustrating to see us concede a goal like that in the 87th minute, considering how hard we'd worked to get it back to 3-3. It's poor.
That's the kind of thing.
It's poor defending. They're probably their 2 best players. I think it's De Bruyne and Doku completely free on their left hand side, and we've got I don't know if it. I mean, it's like, well, surely you get 87th minute, everyone's got to be back defending. You get everyone back. You get the forwards, but you got forwards flitting around and kind of just waiting for the ball to kind of reach them to try and go on and score a winner for us. It seems, and I'm guessing that comes from the manager. That's like, okay, no, don't come back and defend. You stay out there and wait for the loose ball to come to you, sort of thing. Whereas the loose ball came to Belgium, and they had 2 men over on that left. I could kind of see it, and I was thinking, someone get there. And you can see this sort of unfolding kind of nightmare scenario, and it's like, that is a perfect ball for their best player. There's no way he's going to miss it. I could just see it, that goal happening before it happened, and I just thought that is so preventable.
They had 2 men spare on both flanks, and all night we were short, pretty much, and they had a field day. That said, that goal led from a corner that wasn't a corner either, which is a little bit galling as well. I don't know whether you've seen that back, Huw, but yeah, Connor makes a terrific challenge.
I haven't, because it's not on the highlights.
Yeah, so Connor makes a terrific challenge, and it comes off Doku, and it's pretty clear. Connor was absolutely furious, you could tell. But okay, it happens, it gets given, and that's not the reason for the goal. The goal should still be defended far, far better.
For what it's worth, I was told at the time when we were trying to work out with the throw-in, is it clear or not? Because I thought we went out at the time, and then people watching on TV said it's really not obvious. On the replay.
It was for me. I was on the replay. It was.
I thought
it was obviously out. Yeah. I think that's why Bellamy was so angry, and he got a yellow card, because it was right in front of him, and he was just like, "How did you not see that? How did you not see that?" the whole time that the VAR thing was going on, and it seemed to sort of kill our concentration a bit. Like Rich said, it shouldn't have, but it
I
appeared to.
suppose Garcia got a yellow card once it'd been overturned, and he wasn't happy. So
Yeah.
there was some heads being lost, relatively speaking, on both sides. It's how you switch. It's whether you switch back on and kind of how quickly you switch back on, and arguably Belgium did it a little bit quicker than us.
I think with the goal we conceded at the end, I don't know how much of it is intense and how much of it was just like incapability. I think we just defended it really badly. I don't know if we were all looking to break. Just the players were just all in the wrong positions. Like we had one person on the two, like we were in the ground. Like why is the guy there on his own completely? We've hooked the ball clear. One man goes out, another one is left completely on his own. And then, two men at the back post unmarked. I think one of them is meant to be Johnson's man. And to be fair to Johnson, he looked knackered for about 85 minutes. Like, he was kind of getting criticised when we were 4-3 down to stoppage time from people going like, come on, keep running. But he just looks so tired by that point, which, is not saying it's completely all forgivable, but I think that might have been what it was. And I'm not entirely sure it's his man anyway, because just the shape of it, like if you take a screenshot of when that ball's coming in, like all of our players are marking space and all of their players are in different postcodes. And I don't think it was us looking to break and score a winner. I think it was just total disorganization at the back. Maybe it's not something you practice much, like how you settle after half clearing a corner. But I mean, also Darlow could have claimed it, or there were three players going for the header and none of them really got a decent head on it, and we've hooked over the shoulder. I think it was just slightly panicked defending all round, possibly because we don't, train defence enough, which is the offset of wonderful attacking. But basically, I didn't know if that came from the mood in the same way that the goal that was disallowed. I don't know if they just took us apart because we left too many people up. I think they just played through us because we had not defending well enough, basically. Actually, the Johnson fitness thing has just reminded me of something I also wanted to bring up, and that was, generally being a big fan and defender of Bellamy, I thought his subs in the last, or lack of subs in the last 10 minutes or so, were absolutely baffling, because you've got 8 minutes of stoppage time. So by the time they've scored, you've got 10 minutes in which to score. And you've got a player in Sorba Thomas who's whipping in a lot of dangerous crosses. We've scored from crosses already in that game, like twice effectively. And he's not only not brought on Kiefer Moore, the biggest aerial threat, but he's also taken off the guy who's putting in all the crosses for a player in Rabi Matondo, who is very fast to play against a defence that is going to be sitting deep and not attacking, and arguably lacks a bit of end product when the thing we need exactly is end product. I hated that sub at the time, and I don't mean that as even criticism of Matondo, who's come on and improved a lot. I just didn't see the need for it, while also leaving on tired players elsewhere and not bringing on your aerial threat when you're trying to get balls in the box. It was so mad to me. I just couldn't get it at all.
What do you think of the subs altogether? Because I mean, when Harris and Cullen came on for 63 minutes, I was a little bit really two players who've had fairly average seasons in the championship. I mean, I think Huw, you flagged up the stat about Harris hadn't scored one goal since September or something. I don't know what it is, but I mean, was it what did you think when those two came on 63 minutes?
I was surprised. I think I got the Harris thing because I think he wanted to stop them progressing their ball out of defence so easily, and he's very good at closing down passing lanes and pressing and the like. And he got into a good position for a header, which he then put wide and could have done better with. But I thought Brooks played pretty well. Like he got himself into a great position with actually a bit of strength as well as good movement onto Mepham's long ball fairly early on, and had the shot well saved. Cullen for James, didn't love it, but Cullen had played well in the first game, and Bellamy seems to really trust him. Basically, those ones I was like, okay, not entirely sure, but don't hate them. I get that he wants to make some changes. I just didn't understand the late one because I couldn't work out Bellamy's reasoning. It did seem like the exact opposite situation as to what you want Matondo, who can be a very good player, but what we needed to do at that point, basically.
Yeah, so the Kiefer Moore situation in general, I think, is puzzling. I mean, clearly he's not like an archetypal Craig Bellamy player. I think that's kind of quite obvious so far. But to not bring him on at all, I think, given that he's always looked like a threat for us, and he has come up with some really important goals. So yeah, that was really strange to not bring him on, and I kind of agree about Sorba Thomas. The only thing I wondered with that was whether they felt, looking at him, that he was tiring badly. Like I can't say that I particularly noticed that, but they would presumably be going off. They'd be kind of eyeballing him and seeing that for themselves. But yeah, I mean, even to bring Matondo on when you've got, I mean, Lewis Kumas came on in the previous game and did okay. I mean, I get they're like different kinds of threats, but yeah, generally the subs and then the position. Basically, it was like this sort of end game management just seemed off, and that is Bellamy's responsibility. I mean, although you could say Bellamy might have been giving everyone the absolute perfect on point instructions and they just weren't doing it. That is also possible, I think. Like if I haven't got a problem if Bellamy was saying, okay, we're at 3-3 and now we're going to go and win 4 or 5-3 because we can do it and I want you all to commit to it. I haven't got a problem with that because that's kind of clear and that's just, if he thinks he can do it, well, then he can do it. But I would be interested to know whether that is what he thought or whether he did actually say to them, drop back, or whether maybe he just didn't say anything and nothing was communicated to the players. Because it just seemed confused to me. Like there wasn't that, and Craig Bellamy's spoken about his giving the players their library of like positions and formations and shapes and stuff. Well, I mean, I don't know what was going on at the library. It was just like every single book was everywhere. It was just, there was like they were playing every single tactic, possibly. I'm not sure. And this is what I think. What I would genuinely be fascinated because he hasn't spoken post Belgium as much as he seems to have spoken. I mean, it might be in the coming days that he'll talk about it, but I think that's going to be intriguing to hear what he says. And hopefully the journalists do ask him and kind of press him on it a little bit because I think it needs to be explained.
And it does feel that there's I don't know, is there going to be? Is he having a bit of an easy ride? Media-wise, he's had a great start. He's great for sound bites, like you said earlier, Rich. He loves to talk. He must, he writes the articles. He writes the copy for a lot of the journalists. But they've also got a job to do to kind of challenge him on a few of these things as well. I'm not sure necessarily it's happening. I think if a Page team was defending like that in the first half, I mean, he would be absolutely crucified. And I don't know. I think he's still getting a little softballed a little bit by some of them, to be perfectly honest.
And I think that's Gaz's opinion to kind of share his views in it as well.
Yeah.
If it's interesting because on our WhatsApp group, it's a very different vibe. It's kind of generally seemed a bit more positive. I was kind of saying like if Gaz isn't going to be here being kind of because Gaz is a bit less positive about it and I'm usually negative but on this occasion feel really good about it and we're like, oh, maybe Leon can try because Rich is always go happy and then I feel like we've all been miserable and it doesn't come that way across that way at all when we're talking about it otherwise. Like Rich was of the opinion we were going to win about 9-0, seemed happy about it. I think I kind of want to just before everyone gets too depressed about it, and this isn't happy clapping, I think there was a big problem at the end, as I've mentioned, talk briefly about the feeling of how it got to get from 3-0 to 3-3, because while the end result does dictate how you feel afterwards, that's something I can't think we've ever done before. Have we ever done anything like that?
Oof. I can't think of it.
No.
It was extraordinary in the stadium without wanting to be kind of I was there wanker. Like it was absolute bedlam with tops off and everyone having an absolute whale of a time. And again, it doesn't last. And, we've lost that game. We can't ignore that. But just, again, to be a bit, if it's a bit soppy about it or not, but just to have that joy and the capability of feeling that watching the team is just wonderful to me. We're at a moment where Scotland fans booed their team off the other day. England fans seem very unhappy with Tuchel. Italy have just sacked the manager, I think, because they're all so fucking miserable about it. And a lot of people seem to be really not enjoying watching international teams. And while the destination ended up being not hell, purgatory. Or no, purgatory's a draw. Anyway, while the destination ended up not being what we wanted, the journey was phenomenal. I just wanted to kind of make sure that comes across as well.
No, I think that's a fair point. Experientially, then clearly it's remarkable, and it's one of those games for the ages sort of thing that people will be talking about for years to come. It is also a nil point on the night, and I think actually in that group, I mean, North Macedonia probably, I think the biggest winners of the window. They're thinking if they didn't concede that Brooks goal, they'd be on 10 points, and we'd be on, and they'd have quite a big gap after them as well. So they must be feeling quite sick even more so as to how that result went. It does put a little bit of pressure more onto us now again to get something out in Kazakhstan, which I do think we should do, and I expect us to. But there's no margin for error now with those sorts of fixtures. Maybe there wasn't even before the Belgium game, and no matter how it would have gone. But we scored 10 in 4 games, conceded 6. We did say it was going to be interesting. It is proving to be that.
Do you want to start to sort of back that up, which is, I think, is kind of hilarious. We conceded the same number of goals on Monday night than we conceded in the entire 10-game campaign to qualify for Euro 2016. So I mean, we didn't score that many. We conceded 4 over the course of the campaign. Didn't concede a single goal against Belgium in 2 games. 2 of those goals were against Bosnia in the last game when we qualified anyway, so the result was academic. On the flip side, we only scored 11 in those 10 games, and we've already scored 10 in 4 in this campaign. Halfway through the campaign, scored 10, conceded 6. But we've defensively to qualify. The margins are so tight. To qualify automatically, we've got to be better than that defensively. It's just, there's no way around it. We have to be tighter against top teams. It's not just Monday night, but also conceding sloppy goal against North Macedonia. Okay, it's a mistake from a player. You wouldn't normally expect to make a mistake like that. But conceding against Kazakhstan as well, it was a penalty, but it definitely was a penalty. So it's got to be tighter if we have any chance of topping this group. We're gonna have to keep clean sheets, score lots of goals, and beat Belgium, and beat everyone basically. We have no margin for error whatsoever. But you wouldn't expect Belgium to really drop any points apart from hopefully to us in Cardiff for the rest of the campaign. So it could come down to goal difference, and you wouldn't back us to beat Belgium on goal difference. You just wouldn't. But to bring it back to sort of more positive vibes, what an international footballer Harry Wilson is these days. What a player. That's 9 goals in his last 18 games. He's got 14 altogether for Wales and 62 caps, which by my maths is 5 goals in his first 44 and now 9 in his last 18. That is seriously stepping up to the plate, isn't it? And I think in the past we've kind of questioned Wilson a little bit when Bale was around, is he really sort of grabbing the game by the scruff of the neck, and is he disappearing a little bit too much? Do we want a bit more from him in terms of the hard stats, the goals and assists? Well, we can have no complaints about any of that stuff now. He's just stepped up completely. And I think the reason why maybe we had these kind of feelings was we could see just what a talent he was. Just total main character energy about him. I just love watching him play these days. I've always been a fan, but it's exceptional what he's doing. His form over the last 2 years or so, absolutely exceptional.
It's not just the contributions; it's that kind of presence he's now bringing. He is, like I said, big player energy. It's kind of like, right, I'm going to get hold of this. I'm going to stamp my authority. We're in a moment in a game where it's going to need me to do something. that's what you want your clutch players doing, isn't it? Really, and it's unfair to kind of compare him with Bale to a certain extent. But I mean, it is that. It's that mentality, though, isn't it? To go, right, I can't look to anybody else. I've got to do it, and maybe it's a little bit about time that he's doing that. But now that he's doing it, it's great to see. And there's some good players that he's about to pass if he stays on this goal scoring kind of path. This purple patch he's in. He's level with Hartson. He's level with Moore. Next one's ahead of him: John Charles, Mark Hughes, and Cliff Jones and Rob Earnshaw. And that goal ratio is pretty good as well. So yeah. So mentioned earlier that they made 2 half-time substitutions, one of whom didn't even last 20 minutes. Dodi, is it Luca Bacchio? Because before we start recording, you mentioned Gattuso. He was subbed as a sub, wasn't he? And I can remember David Cottrell being hooked after coming on against Northern Ireland in a friendly out there. Like the 0-0, one of the worst games I've ever seen. And you could tell he was not happy with Toshak at all. The 19 minutes coming on at half-time, that is pretty... I felt sorry. Do you think he just carried on walking? Just like down the tunnel, straight out the front door?
out the country. The weird thing about that is again, looking back at it now, so he's missed an absolute sitter at the start of the second half. He's also completely created that chance himself. He's run at us, scared the crap out of us, slipped it to De Bruyne. De Bruyne's returned the pass and he's through on goal. He's created the chance out of basically nothing and then missed it badly. And that's all I remember him doing in the half hour, 20 minutes, half hour he was on. It is terrible, but I really hope he hasn't been overly punished for missing that. Whatever it was, yeah, as you say, hooked, seemingly not injured after, I think it was 25 minutes.
No, the biggest casualty is his self-esteem for sure. I don't think there was any other physical. It was all emotional injury, nothing physical. But so that's one for... is it The Guardian does that feature where people can kind of ask sort of weird, random stato type questions? Any shorter... And not having been injured as well, going on as a sub, any shorter cameos. But answers on a postcard, please. Anything else to say about the window? Otherwise, we'll draw it to a close.
I don't know if how far anyone wants to get into this, but I have a sort of slightly philosophical question, which is like, is maybe a loss for Bellamy at this point a good thing going forward? Because everything he's sort of touched has sort of turned to gold so far. And like, if we'd have seen it out for a draw, would he have just think, oh yeah, I'm exactly on the right path, and we're just going to keep going, we're just going to keep attacking and going out to win every game and not try and do anything defensive because it's working for us, and that's what we'll carry on doing. With having suffered a loss, has he got to sort of rethink it? You've got to look at sort of, how are we going to not concede 4 goals against Belgium when we played them in Cardiff? It's always going to happen at some point. Who's going to lose, and maybe losing away to Belgium at this point in the overall picture might not be such a bad thing. And I'm saying that knowing that it really hurts our chances of getting to the World Cup. I just wondered if you guys have any thoughts on that.
I think it's good. The longer this kind of unbeaten run of his, it's already sort of set a record for a new Wales manager. The longer that was going to go on, it's just going to keep being a talking point, and that's that. We can just put that to bed now. And I think you're right. And I think it also is. I think it's also good that it is the last fixture. So he goes into now the close season, and this is that'll be eating away at him, I'm sure. It's not like we've got a low key friendly to round the season off and to prepare for. That's the game that he's got to. As good as your last game, as the saying goes, it's that game that he's got to kind of mull over going into into September's window. I think it is. You don't want to lose, clearly. It has hurt our chances in terms of the group and that group dynamic. But I think, from a philosophical point of view, putting it that way, Leon, I think there's possibly some good to come out of it. Rich, what do you reckon?
Well, yeah, you would hope so. I mean, there has to be really. With the unbeaten record, this was something I was kind of considering. If we'd got the draw, he would have been unbeaten in 10. Now he's lost. That means he's won 4 out of his first 10 games. Do you know? So the way that one loss flips that record is quite dramatic, really. So suddenly he's in a position where he's no longer unbeaten. He's won 4 out of the first 10. Just tons of draws in there. And you might start looking back and thinking, well, what about this? What about this? What happened against Belgium, etc. For me, yeah, it should be a learning point for him. I mean, it really does have to be. If I would say it's likely it's going to be the playoffs. I mean, it'd be a surprise if Belgium didn't win every game other than us, which would mean they'd qualify. So yeah, if it's the playoffs, I mean, frankly, I don't care how Craig Bellamy thinks football, quote, should be played. I just want to qualify for the World Cup. So when it comes to the playoffs, is he going to stick to his principles and we're going to be 2-0 down after 10 minutes? Or is he going to maybe, depending on the opposition, be a little bit more pragmatic, come up with a plan that might be more defensive, that might involve doing things that are against his principles, but will see us qualify for what's going to be an amazing World Cup? That's fascinating. I could just really have to hope he'll have us in the right shape by the playoff, and he will be flexible enough in his outlook to make sure that we win, because ultimately us winning and getting to the World Cup is way more important than what his personal philosophy is on football. That should be obvious to him as much as anyone.
And he's not there on his own. He's got a team around him. This is kind of part of the reason for assistance. It's not about sharing the workload. It's about being a critical friend. It's about being a challenge. It's about constructive criticism and so there's a responsibility both collectively amongst the support staff as well to go, okay, it can't just be about cult of Bellamy because he's good copy. Like you said, Rich, we want to qualify for a World Cup. We went to the last one, we want to go to another one, and the one after that, and the one after that, So, yeah. Huw, last word to yourself?
I had fun.
What do you think? Is a loss at this point maybe not such a bad thing? Yes or no?
I know what you mean. I don't agree, but I do know what you mean. So I see where you're coming from. I think we have had to put up with... we have had some bumps in the road, but yeah, the fact that we kind of nicked promotion unexpectedly, as you say, that was kind of everything he touched turning to gold. But I don't think many people have watched it and thought this is incredible. We've still looked a little bit questionable at times. We've conceded Kazakhstan. We've kind of struggled to see off some bad teams. And as Gaz was saying, I don't know why I'm talking about like he's dead, but as Gaz was saying, we hadn't faced a really good team before now, and we've lost. But I think in the context of the group and everything else, then a loss is just the last thing needed, because I think effectively now, well, not even effectively, I mean, just mathematically, we need Belgium to drop points, because if we win out from here and they win out from here, they'll beat us on goal difference, pretty much guaranteed, because they always thump minnows. I mean, they still haven't lost a qualifier since losing to us 10 years ago tomorrow. So they don't tend to drop many points. It was a real bonus for us that they lost to... they drew with North Macedonia. So, I mean, I don't know. I think Bellamy would have continued the same way anyway. I think he might do anyway, but I think if we'd drawn that, he'd feel as much confidence in his system as he does now, pretty much. And I think some of what he's saying is for the fans and deliberate, and I'd rather try something and, come away with nothing than not try anything and succeed. I think he just worded that incredibly badly. I think what he meant to say was probably I'd much rather try something and fail miserably than not try anything and fail anyway. I mean, I think even Bellamy would rather succeed, whatever it takes to get there. But I think he's going to continue the way he is now, and hopefully we'll just learn to coach the defence better, because it's not all intent. Sometimes it's just poor, we're not meaning to concede those goals. We're just not in good shape, in defensive shape, and I think he's got to fix that effectively. So in answer to your question, no, I don't think it is good news, if you like, but I do see where you're coming from. He'll dwell on it a lot. He seems to spend a lot of time in his own head. I think he'll be thinking about it quite a lot.
Yeah. Should we leave it there? Thank you for your time. It's getting late. Yeah, and I'm glad you liked it, Huw. And I'm glad you're back all in one piece as well.
I'm glad everyone else enjoyed it at home. I hope they enjoyed it.
Cheers, fellas.